Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop, and we're going to have some fun tonight because it is our monthly Q&A. If you are new to this and watching it recorded, then go down in the description down below and you will see a list of all of the questions. On those questions there are timestamps beside it so you can jump around in the video. But also in the first few minutes of every live, we go and talk about some of the upcoming events in the Wood by Wright world and things that are going to be happening. So if you want to know about that, just stick around for the first couple minutes of every live. If you are watching this recorded, go ahead and throw your questions in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can tonight. We already have a decent list of them, but we'll see what we can do. Otherwise, if you hit a super chat, we'll get to your question. Things coming up. Oop, getting march that off. We don't have tickets anymore. March 26th coming up. Why is this so yanking on me? March 26th, we have the MWTCA meet here in Loves Park. It's just a couple miles away from me. And I am going to be at that one. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually going to have quite a few tools that I'm going to bring for sale. And that is Loves Park, which is Rockford, Illinois. Let's see. April 16th is the MWTCA meet in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm going to be out for that one. June 14th through the 17th is the National in Green Bay. So imagine for a moment an entire basketball court completely covered with tables, and all of those tables have tools on top of them, and all of those tables have tools underneath them, and they're all for sale. That is one small portion of the MWTCA National Meet. The largest tool sale the largest antique tool sale in the world. Happens twice a year, once in June and once in September, October, depending upon where it falls. So this year it's going to be in Green Bay in June, and then it's going to be September, late September in Des Moines, Iowa. So if you can make it out for that, fantastic. And if you've never been to it, that is probably where 60% of my tools come, or MWTCA meets. Decent deals, lots of tools, and if you want it, it's there. Let's see, next up I have, September 1st and 2nd. September 1st and 2nd is Handworks in Amana, Iowa. If you go to one event this year, that is the event to go to. It is an entire town dedicated to hand tools. So yes, definitely take a look at that. I have links to those in the description as well. Next thing coming up, if you're a patron, you know I've been trying to hash out how to do classes. Because my space down here, I really can't do much more than like 2 people at a time. And that just, it's okay, but I would like to be able to give it to more people. So I'm working out a way to actually do online classes, but rather than having one video where it's like this, where I'm switching back and forth between cameras, I want to have a bunch of cameras set up around here. And the person watching on the other end can actually pick which camera they want to watch from. So you can look from overhead, you can look at the close-up, you can look at the big view, you can look at the back, you can look at different angles, and have it so you can actually be a part of it and have a full voice connection so that you can talk with it. So I'm playing with this, and I'm going to be testing a few things with patrons. So if you are a patron, stay tuned. I'm probably going to be putting out information on it later this week. I'm just kind of hashing out a few things. I have to do a couple tests. But we're going to be having fun with that. We're actually making, the first thing is just making a Gatshaw block, which is one of these things. It's kind of a test play around. And I figured that'd be kind of good because we'll be testing things. So stay tuned for that. I was actually talking to Ann from Ann of All Trades today. And it looks like end of May. End of May? Yes, end of May. May, I think 27th-ish.
What?
What's that?
What are you going to do on May 27th?
Your birthday.
Exactly.
This is all, May, or is it April? Stay tuned, but we're going to be doing a class with Ann and myself and maybe Rex Kruger, so we'll see. Yeah, that should be kind of fun. And we'll actually be doing an online class with the 3 of us in our own shops, showing 3 different methods and 3 different ways of doing it, and it should be a really cool way to try something different. So stay tuned. We have a lot of fun things coming. Yeah, we were just down at WorkbenchCon, so the 3 of us had a chance to kind of hash a few things out and talk through. So it's a lot of fun.
I don't plan on being sick for my birthday this year. We're going to party this year.
Yes. That, and we got that, and we got that. Yep, cool. So let's jump into questions and get this schmolly rolling. What do we got, babe?
Okay, I think I am caught up. If I miss just throw it back in.
Cool.
Let's see. Alex asked, what a quick timber framing project proxy I can test my new framing chisel, or can you talk about the differences in uses between slicks and framing chisels?
There are two key aspects between framing chisel and slick. This is a 3-inch slick. Generally, a framing chisel has a handle, but the handle isn't too much bigger than a hand. When it gets longer, it's usually considered a slick. And you will find long handles on like 1-inch wide blades, and generally that's considered a slick. But it's kind of a gray area. Normally the breaking point is 1.5 inch and smaller is a chisel, and 2-inch and bigger is a slick, and you'll usually find matching handles for those, but you will find some oddballs. This particular one was actually, someone took an old baseball bat and made the handle for it, and I love this one. This is very pleasing when I got this one down in Georgia on a trip down there. That was his question. What's the difference between the two?
Differences in uses between slicks and framing chisels, and then what a quick timber framing project.
Okay.
Okay, test my new framing chisel.
Differences in uses, it just comes down to how to, with a slick, it's got enough mass and a bigger handle, so it is its own impact. It's not something you set in place and do fine tick, 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 tick work with. It's intended to be something you slide and hit with. That's why it's a slick, because it slides. And so it's not quite as accurate, but the more skilled you get with it, the more accurate you become, and it can be incredibly accurate. A lot like the Viking axes. You see a lot of old Viking timberworks, and they did everything with axes and hatchets and things of that nature. Whereas with a chisel, it's usually intended to be hit with a mallet. And so that's why the handle is smaller and the size of a hand, because a mallet would come and strike it. And that would allow you to put it precisely where you want and then follow through. That gives a little bit finer work. But when you're talking about timber working, you're talking generally larger chisels. A small one is 3/4, and then they go up to bigger sizes from that. Fun little projects to do. Timber framing, there is no such thing as a little project. But one of my favorites that I did was actually the mailbox post. Because you have a vertical member, a horizontal member, you can put in a diagonal member, you can do tenons, you can do wedges, pins, and you can do all that timber framing just in one joint. And it's a lot of fun. I actually did a video on that 3-4 years ago. And that's a fun one. I almost every day I would walk by and it's like, I like that. It's just a fun mailbox. Doesn't look like anyone else on the street.
No, it is very helpful when you're driving down the road and you're like, that's my house.
Yeah, I could tell people.
Because our house
look for the big timber frame box. That's mine. Yeah, our houses, everyone looks like the other one. What's next?
I'm just going in order. So Alex had one other one. Is it bad to use diamond stones to sharpen chef's knives? All videos I saw show a fancy setup with stones, and I'm unsure if I destroyed something.
Oh, yeah. When you get into chef's knives, you get into some really picky people. And it doesn't matter how you'll do it. You'll have someone telling you you're doing it wrong. The truth of the matter is, if it cuts the food, you did it right. You don't have to get picky on it. And if you are being told by someone that you're doing it wrong and it's still working, then don't worry about it. Yes, I sharpen mine on diamond plates. Actually, a lot of times I sharpen them on the simple V. They're stones that you run it through. They don't last as long, and I really need to replace the one I use. But I use that for about a year, and then once a year I bring them down and I redo them completely on the stone and clean them up. But yeah, if you can get really, really picky about knives, and if you ever get into the knife world, there are people who make every woodworker look like they're laid back. Yeah, you start talking about knives and bevel angles and bevel types and styles and cuts, and whoa, such a simple thing has a lot of nitpickiness to it. So don't worry, if it cuts right, then you're doing it good. What's next?
Warren Munn Let's see, sort of kind of off topic. It sounds about Warrenish, but it's for my miter saw. I need to repair the top of a casting, just a thin strip, then shape. What doesn't JB Weld stick to? I don't have a broken piece I need to recreate.
If I were to do that, I would probably make one out of wood and then cast the wood in a silicone mold and then use the JB Weld as the cast for it, or in the mold. That way, if one didn't work out, I could put another one into it. I mean, what doesn't it stick to? It's basically an epoxy, so any wax or oiled surface, silicone, things of that nature, it won't stick to those. Yeah, or packing tape, if you can form the packing tape right, though that's kind of painful. What?
We got a super chat, but it didn't do any.
Oh, dadgummit, thank you. Didn't do what?
Doesn't it do the light up?
No, the light is currently offline.
But it didn't like bling. Maybe the sound's off.
The sound is off.
It's a very technical term, you know. I just
Well, it may be that I didn't integrate. My computer crashed on me. My power supply died, and that was kind of like a chain reaction. I had to replace a bunch of things on it, and so I've had to reset up some connections this week. So, yeah, like 30 seconds before the live, I was like, "Oh no, we're not working. We don't have any sound," and I'm trying to figure that out. It was kind of fun. What's next?
So Dad Gamet says, project idea, ... Coffee grinder, ... Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I've done pepper grinders, which it's basically the same thing if you have a conical burr. But a coffee grinder usually has a bigger handle because you're doing it a lot more. You're putting a lot more material through it. And the burrs tend to be a little larger, and the hopper is much larger. So yeah, I thought about doing that, but haven't yet. So I haven't found a good kit for that. I should go looking for that. Maybe I'll put that on the list.
You should make one.
I should do that.
All right, Dad's going to want a joke, so.
Oh, dad joke. What you got? Or do you want to throw another question at me?
I'm going to have to find one. I wasn't ready yet.
Okay.
Let's see. Who's Dale Patton? I picked up a froe at a yard sale. How is it sharpened? And have you heard the term, he's as dull as a froe?
Well, there's some truth to that, because this is one of those tools that really doesn't have to be sharp. A froe is, because it is designed to split, it will dull out really quickly. Because the way you do is you put it on the wood and you drive it down in. You bash it with everything you've got, and it gets into the wood. Once it goes in a little ways, it's no longer, the edge is no longer contacting the wood. So once it goes in about a ½ inch or so, the edge is pointless. And then once it gets down in the thickness of the depth of the blade itself, you then rotate the handle, and you use that rotation, the leverage out here, to split the wood. But what that means is the very tip of the froe is pushing against one side, the top is pushing against the other. So you're putting a lot of force twisting on the very edge of it. And if you have a really sharp edge, you're just going to end up chipping it out. So usually you want it to be ever so slightly blunt. And I want to, it's something I could do that too without a problem. I mean, it's still, so I wouldn't want to go straight down it, but this is about where I'd want it. As to how to sharpen it, once the tool gets bigger than the plate, you take the tool to the plate. I actually like to use my, where is it? My hatchet stone. This is a little two-sided puck. Well, it would help if I turned that camera on. There we go. 3. So this is a simple puck here, and one side is coarse and one side is fine. And so I will take this to it and just, actually I'm going to do the fine side. This is pretty good. And just bring that along there. Ooh, that actually made it a little sharp. A slight burr on the back. And I wouldn't normally take it quite that fine, but that's what I use.
Is it a single or double bevel?
It's double. There's a blade here. you take the handle off, so I can bring it up like this. So the blade is actually out of focus. So it's got bevel there and bevel there. So I run it down both sides and make a match. So it's very much like sharpening a hatchet, just a very long hatchet. Cool, what's next?
Make sure you bury it. Anyway, are you ready for a joke?
Yeah, what we got?
I think you'll like this one. What's the worst season to be a free solo climber?
Fall?
Yeah.
That's a little maniacal there.
I know what you're talking about. I kind of chuckled at Dale's question at first when he's like, picked up a froe at a yard sale, how do you sharpen? And I was like, you got a Bob Ross wig and you want to sharpen? No. I knew better. Let's see. Jean-Luc. What does Jean-Luc have to say? What's the difference between a turtle and perforated lance teeth on large cross-cut saws?
I don't know the term turtle, but I'm not as up to cross-cut saws. Do I have one down? I don't have one down here right now. Lance teeth, the teeth on a crosscut saw tend to be very long, and lance teeth has really thin, long points that stick straight up. Perforated mean about halfway up that tooth, there is a wedge that connects from one tooth to the other. It means your gullet isn't quite as long, but it gives the tooth far more stability, so it's not wanting to move around while it's cutting. And so the idea is once you sharpen it down to that webbing that goes between the teeth, you file that webbing off, and then you have standard lance teeth. But I don't know the term turtle. I'd have to look that one up. So sorry.
Probably got mistyped.
No, that's more in the logging world, so I'm not as much into that. I've done a little bit. I played around with it, but I haven't spent a lot of time in that. What's next?
Sorry, Alex asked, what did Arnold Schwarzenegger say when he went to the soup buffet?
What?
I don't know. I'm waiting for the answer. I'll be back.
Went to the soup buffet?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't get it.
Wait, wrong Arnold joke.
What's next?
Okay. Let's see. Alex wants to know, what was the highlight of WorkbenchCon for you?
Oh, just hanging out with other creators, bouncing ideas off. WorkbenchCon is interesting because it is a conference designed for woodworking YouTubers or Instagram people who make content, and it's a time where we can all get together and say, hey, what's working for you? What's not working for you? How do you do this? And it's interesting to see different people, because some people, it's a serious business and they're working every little aspect to try and make money on it. And some people, it is about the community and building a community of answers and people coming together. And there are all sorts of different variations, and you have people who just do Instagram and people who just do YouTube and some people who just do Twitter. And getting all of those thoughts together is really kind of cool, because I can say, what's working for you? What have you learned, and what can we work together? And so you start just hashing out topics. And Rex and I, we didn't get a whole lot of time because it's a pretty short 2-day event. And the time we did have was phenomenal, as you can sit down and just talk about all sorts of different topics. And it's a really cool learning. It kind of builds a fire under you to get out there and have some fun. Or at least it makes me want to have some fun. Other people are like, I got to make more money. And you can definitely see the difference between people who are in it for the fun and just create content because they want to create content, and some people who it's a solid business. And it's kind of fun to watch the differences. What's
then
next?
there's us. We mix business and pleasure. Anyways. What is the purpose of your trip? Anyways. Back to the joke, because apparently I read the wrong answer. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, a soup buffet, is get to the chowder.
Ah, I got it.
I had to fix it. Okay. Moving on. Now I'm thinking of Little Mermaid and food. And anyways, Dale Patton, any progress on the name change?
Oh, I don't know. So just so you people know, just so everyone, when I made Wood by Right How To, the idea was I wanted to have a place where I could do all of the how-to and talking. Because at the time, the how-to videos were not doing well. They were dragging the channel down. And so I wanted to do that because that's my passion, teaching and instructing and answering questions. I wanted to do that. So I made a separate channel for just the how-to. And then the main channel was the easy watching. It was just the builds. It was no talking. It was just putting out a video once a week. And initially, the main channel was rocketing up and the second channel was just kind of floating around. But now it has flip-flopped. The how-to videos are exploding. Everyone wants those, and no one wants the easy watching videos. To the point that the second channel is order of magnitude stronger than the first channel. So I'm spending all my time on the second channel, this channel here. And so it's becoming the main channel. So I really don't want to call it 2. I don't want to call it the second channel. So I'm trying to find a way of renaming them from the second channel to the main channel. So I'm probably just going to change it to rather than Wood by Right How and the number 2 to just Wood by Right How To. And then the main channel, I'll put something like ASMR at the end or something like that. And that way I can say the How To channel and the ASMR channel. Rather than saying the main channel.
It's going to get a whole different...
So, yeah, nothing will change in the function and how things are showing. I just want to have, I want to make it a little bit clearer rather than calling one a second channel and the main channel. I want to make them equal. They're 2 solid channels. And who knows, in the future, it may flip-flop and the interest is one way or the other. So we'll stay to that. Another thing I am thinking about doing is because I have been doing shorts on this channel, and I've been thinking about doing longs on the other channel, doing like an hour or 2 long hour just building in the shop and talking with what I'm building, and doing some real, well, not talking, just building and having the shop noises like an hour-long ASMR video, but just woodworking. So we'll see.
You're going to solve all their insomnia problems.
Yeah, something like that. What's next?
Except what's the ones... There's one sound you do and it's awful. It's so loud. I can't remember which one it is. Let's see.
I don't know. Now you got me worried.
I can't think
Is
of
it
it.
the
right
hammer,
now.
the chisel?
Okay, I'll ask. What the heck is ASMR?
What does it stand for?
Do you...
I don't remember what it stands for.
It's like an...
Auditory...
Short answer. Is it like for certain people like me, it creates like tingles in the brain and like down the back. It's really weird, but it like is very relaxing.
Yeah,
a lot of people watch it to actually go to sleep.
You lower the
The
volume
actual answer.
and you turn up the gain. So the volume is the same, but you get this like, hi, my name is James, and today we're going to be doing some woodworking. And we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, so stay tuned because you never know what's going to happen.
It doesn't have to be like that. Actually, that was... Anyways. Autonomous sensory meridian response.
Got it.
It's like kind of like getting like goosebumps. A lot of people... So if you go to the eye doctor, and for some people that's like weird, tingly, yet kind of relaxing, it's that sensation. I don't know.
I mean, and my easy watching videos aren't ASMR. They are, they're just shop noises. Maybe I should do that. Wood by Right shop noises. Thump, 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 thump.
I said you'll put them all asleep. It'll be ASMR. It'll be fine. They'll love it.
What's next?
Okay, I have to come back to that chat. All right. Andy Puttbach. I made a Roubo saw out of a frame saw blade from Highland Woodworking and having problems with making straight rip cuts. Do you have any tips on using them?
Yeah, well, when you're working with a big Roubo style frame saw, number one, that blade has got to be crazy tight. When I'm tightening it up, here, let me show you what I got. I get my big chisel, not my big chisel, my big screwdriver. Put it up here. And so I tighten this one, and I put it down, and I put my feet on the bottom so that it's not turning, and I'm getting my body into this. And I'm putting serious amount of force in this. Get a little more. Right about there. So this blade is really, really tight. It's crisp. If the blade is not tight, it's going to start wandering. The next thing, gotta go the other way. It's like, why is it loosening? Loosen, loosen, loosen. There, loosen. The next thing is that you never want to go all the way through the board. So when I'm cutting, if this is my board, here, let me grab a saw for demonstration. Grab one that would do, yeah, well, here, oh, better yet, I'm going to draw it on here. So I'm never going to cut straight across the board. I want my blade, so I'm going to lean this at an angle, and I want my blade to be coming at like 45 degrees across. Here. Oop, come on, here we go. So what I've got here is I'll be cutting straight across that way. I'm cutting diagonally across. And grab this, just keeps fun. Come free, there we go. So my saw will be cutting like that through there. And once I get down to this point where these teeth are starting to get onto the far side over here, I'm going to turn this board around. And so my last cut was at an angle like that. And so on this one, this will fall, actually it would be this way here. I'm now going to cut in down to somewhere around here. And so at the bottom of that cut, my blade will be like that. And what that means is that the teeth on the back side here are never cutting on the line. The only line I'm cutting is the side on my side that I can see. And so once I get down to here, I'm going to turn it around again, rotate it, and then I'll be coming down parallel farther down here. And that way, I'm always only cutting on the line I can see. I'm not letting the back do it. The back is always just tracking on whatever's in the curve. And when you're cutting through thick stock, that becomes very important. Number two, don't cut with the board perfectly vertical because you're going to be, I mean, imagine all those straws sticking up and your teeth sticking into it. If you lean them away from you, it just becomes so much easier for the chisels on the teeth to come through and shear out those fibers. So cant it away from you. And those are the big things. The next thing, probably the thing that people fight with the most is they're pushing the saw. Do not, well, you want to cut on the push stroke if you're cutting on your line. However, you don't want to be forcing the saw. Let the weight of the saw do it. This thing is heavy, let it do the cutting. If you're putting extra force into the saw and it's loading up with more dust than it can remove, that dust has to go to one side of the plate or the other inside the cut. And what that does is if it goes onto this side, it pushes the blade that way, and your blade starts to curve. And so if you're getting too much dust loaded up in there, the curving blade just kind of accentuates itself. Once the blade starts to curve, well, then it's putting more pressure on this side, and it wants to curve even more, and it wants to curve even more, and it wants to curve even more. And so you could have it to the point where you're on the line in the back and on the line in the front, but the inside of it's going out crazy, and it's getting harder and harder to push. And that's usually because you're putting force into the saw. Let the saw do the work, because if the teeth are all loaded with sawdust and you're pushing it down harder, you're just trying to make that sawdust that the teeth are loaded with go somewhere. And that causes a lot of problems. So let the saw do the work and only cut on the side you can see. I think those are the biggest tips. What's next?
Well, hopefully my microphone. Oh.
What's that?
I'm not sure my microphone's working. Can you all hear me?
Someone saying you can't hear you?
Well, it doesn't have the one anymore. It's got green light, but
oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully it's working. I kind of dropped it. Anyways. Let's see. Dr. Khan, what can you currently reach that would make the best self-defense weapon?
I don't know. Yeah, this would probably be the best. Because, I mean, you can really wail at this thing, and it's good and sharp. I mean, this is, yeah, I don't want to be sliding my hand on this. It would be nice. Kind of like a lance. I think that would be pretty good. I don't know. Would I want anything if I had a zombie suddenly coming after me? Yeah, that's what I want. Yep, slick. Good question. I like that one. What's next?
I mean, conveniently, you had one right there.
I have what?
I said it was convenient. You had one right there.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what else I would grab.
I don't know why you didn't think I would be like the best, but anyway. Dennis Miko asks, how sharp do you make a slick?
Not very. It's relatively dull. It's nowhere near chisel sharp. It's the type where I can. This I would not want to hit the tip. I would cut myself. With a slick, I would have no problem slapping it. I wouldn't want to slide along it, but it is relatively blunt. What's next?
Hang on.
I'm making her work tonight.
Yeah, really. Come on, man. It's not like joint commissions at our hospital or anything.
Yes, she's busy right now.
Alex asked, about how heavy is James's bench now that he's added the pattern maker vise?
I don't know. This vise is only about 50 pounds. This one's not that much. The other one, that one's I think like 120. That's a big beast. So this one doesn't add that much more. And I think the bench, if I remember correctly, I weighed it one time. I think it was 400. So I'm probably somewhere around 450-ish. So it's not a really heavy bench, but I don't put any extra weight on it, so it's relatively solid. I cannot pick up the bench by myself. I can pick up one end, but I can't pick up the whole bench. What's next?
Let's see. Eric Martin asked, I just got some new Narex mortise chisels. Is there anything special I need to do to prepare them for use other than an initial honing?
Nope. You're going to have some people who will tell you the back on a mortise chisel has to be perfectly flat. And honestly, I say that's pretty much hogwash. Flat-ish. Get it within a few hundredths. That's okay. But it's a tool that's intended to be bashed on and levered against. It's not something that's going to be a high-performance, high-sharpened thing. And if the inside of your mortise is within a couple hundredths, that's golden. You don't need it any tighter than that. Yeah, with the mortise chisel, there isn't much to it. Just sharpen it and go to town. You're going to be pounding on it and bashing on it. It's going to be sharpened in a little bit. So, yeah, they're pretty foolproof. They're intended to take a lot of abuse. So there's not a lot of finesse to them. What's next?
Ian asked, apropos of nothing, definitely not based on a Rob Cosman video, what are your favorite woods to use, starting with number 2?
I don't know why you want the first one. I like bashing my head against a wall. I mean, you ask my wife, it's something I do often.
Literally.
I like difficult woods that have a good outcome. And that's one of the reasons why I like white oak. White oak is a very difficult wood to work with. But it's got so much character when it comes out. Red oak is just as difficult. That's not quite as hard, but it's just as stringy and horrible, but it doesn't have quite the aesthetic to it when it comes out. And then you have hickory. Hickory is even harder than white oak, but it has no benefit when it comes out. Other than you can stain it and make it look kind of like red oak. Let's see. I love sycamore. Sycamore is a fun wood. Quarter sawn sycamore is really beautiful. Cherry is incredibly fun. Walnut is incredibly fun. They have a really good appearance when they come out. I do like working with a lot of exotic South American, Australian, really hardwoods. Those are always fun. Trying to think what else. I love box elder. It is a soft maple, and the colors on it are really cool, and it is incredibly easy to work. It is beautiful for carving. It's clean, it's smooth, it's a little soft, but really, really beautiful. I generally don't pick the wood for a particular project. I look at what wood I have in stock, and I see what wood do I have that would work well for that. Other than when I'm making, you know, furniture pieces that are matching other furniture pieces, then I grip white oak, because that's what goes together. So, yeah. Is that a super chat?
Yes, it is. Dad Gamet says, I picked up a Frame Makers Guillotine yesterday for $15. It is pretty sharp, but as it dulls, how would I go about sharpening it? And what would you use it for beyond frames?
Oh, man. So if you want to know, it's also called a miter shear. And I did a video with mine a while ago, but those things are hard to sharpen because they have just a huge bevel on them. And usually I end up taking them to the stone. So I treat them basically just like a chisel. And the nice thing with the big bevel is it registers, and you don't have any problem with keeping it on the bevel. You can flattenly sharpen it very, very easily. The downside to it is it takes a long time because there's a lot of material there to take off to get it down to something sharper. And so the trick to it is start with something coarse, get it down to getting a burr on the back, letting you know you've gotten down far enough, and then take it through your stones. Because if you're starting with a normal course you'd be doing a chisel on, you're going to be there for a while to take all that material off. So yeah, they're not easy to sharpen. I mean, okay, they're relatively easy to sharpen, but they take a long time. Other uses, you know, honestly, I don't use mine much. I pull it out for videos or times when people have questions about it, but it's one that unless you're doing a lot of picture frames or small boxes, there really isn't much else for it. And 90% of the time, if I'm doing a frame, I'm just going to 45 the corners and shoot it on the shooting board. The miter shear is nice because you can take off large chunks and really hog something off quickly. But I have to take it out, I have to set it up, I have to get everything in place. And by that point, I might as well just draw a line and cut it. I find that to go a lot faster. So yeah, there aren't a whole lot of uses. There's a reason that they're designed for picture frames. They're great there. What's next? Oh, we got a mom joke, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
She's thinking.
Hush.
She's pretty when she thinks. She's pretty all the time. I really don't want to be in the doghouse tonight because it's cold outside tonight.
I'm just mad at myself because I saw a really good joke earlier this week and I didn't save it, and I'm so mad at myself now. Hang on.
Do you want to give a question or?
Some of them are funnier to read. Yeah, I'm gonna give you one. They don't tell well. Let's see. Alex asks, has James ever used the mortise chisels from Tools for working wood, and are they worth it?
I don't remember which brand they're currently selling.
He said Ashley Isles.
Oh, Ashley Isles. No. When it comes to mortising chisels, they're going to get beaten up. And having a really, really good steel on them isn't that much. And Ashley Isles makes really good stuff. Well-tempered, nice steel. But the performance difference between that and a decent steel that's okay, like you're going to get from Narex, the average person isn't going to be able to physically tell the difference. So is it worth the money? Generally, I would say no, because the actual performance difference you're going to see between that and a mid-range decent mortising chisel, there isn't going to be a huge amount. However, if you're the type of person where you like really nice things, they are very nice chisels. They feel amazing, they're beautiful, they work well, they're great steel, they're going to last you a long time. So if those things are important, then yeah, they're worth it. I haven't actually used Ashley Isles mortising chisels. I've used their bench chisels. Good stuff. Not the absolute best in the market, but they're not too far off with mortising chisels because very few companies actually make mortising chisels, and they're one of the best. So, uh-oh.
This is a
She's got that
bad
look.
one.
This is the best. What is it?
Where do rainbows go when they're bad?
Where?
Prism. But it's okay. It's a light sentence.
Yeah, I like that one. That was good.
It took a while to find that one. I'm so behind on the chat now. Okay, back to regular show. Let's see. Hopman asked, who's or where to get the best plans for a traditional English jointer's bench?
There is no such thing as the traditional English jointer's bench, because every micro tradition and age had slight variations and changes on it, and so, yeah. As to what plans are the best, honestly, find a maker you like and trust and get theirs. I really like Rex. He has a couple of them that are phenomenal. He has a whole series of benches, and his plans are absolutely top notch. So Rex Kruger, I would highly recommend his. Shannon Rogers, the Hand Tool School, he has a build series making a very simple English style joinery bench. I mean, there's always the oh, come on, Anarchist Tool Chest. Total mind blank. Shorts.
What are
Shores, not Schwartz. Total mind blank. Yeah, they have some too. He's got an entire video book on benches, and in there he's got diagrams for the English bench. So find someone you like, trust, and get theirs. The rest is kind of superfluous, at least in my book. Someone's probably about to put it up. I can't remember for the life of me. Oh well. What's next?
Let's see. Ken Carlile asked, if you need to fill out the list...
Lost Art Press. Sorry.
Huh?
Lost Art Press, that's where it is.
Oh. If you need to fill out the list, is a number 2 useful for adult hands?
Yes and no. It is the first one. It works. You've got to pull your pinky out as well. You can't get that in there as well. So you usually end up holding it like that, which isn't a problem. And the actual holding of it, the grip isn't bad. So yes, it works. You're going to be rubbing the palm of your hand more on the wood because the tote is a bit smaller. But the number 2 is a functional hand plane. Is it a really functional hand plane that you should go and get? No. Yeah, no. At least for me, it's too small. Unless you're doing a lot of like small stuff, if you're making a lot of little boxes, then it may have some particular use. But in general, not really. So it's not one that I would pull out all that often. Yeah, the number 3 is really kind of where I would go with the smallest standard bench plane. It's got the same feel as a number 4. It's a smaller, more compact, so you can really spot clean up. But the number 2, it's a collector's piece that has some uses. Now, there's a lot of people who absolutely love it, so don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people who love using a number 1. Crazy weirdos, but that's the way they are. But
They better if they spent all that money.
yes. Yeah, there's no... yeah, it's not one that I hold in terribly high regard. But, yeah. What's next?
Let's see. Tim Jones asked, on my Stanley router plane, if I register off one side, I can get a few more shavings than the other side. Do I need to flatten the sole or check to see that the iron is parallel to the sole?
I got to think that one through for a moment. So, if I register off of one side and the iron is lower. Sorry, I got to adjust this for a moment. Oh, that's why. My iron sound. I don't know what would be there. So if you're registering off this side and you get a few more shavings, and then you turn it around this way and you get a few more, that means that the iron I don't see how that could happen. Even if the iron were at a weird angle, it would still be cutting the same depth depending on the next side, as long as the surface is flat. If the surface is flat, that's the only thing that matters. So I would check that. But if the surface isn't flat, then it has more to do with what you're cutting on. There's probably something off with that. But what, I don't know. Yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah, because the only thing, if the iron is at a weird angle or is cutting deeper on one side than the other, then that just means it's going to be leaving a track as the iron cuts. It'd be like a plane going through the wood like that. It'll still be going through the wood at that angle and at that same height no matter where it's at. So yeah, check the bed of your plane and make sure it's flat. If it's not, I mean, if it's flat, then the problem is probably with your work or something in the mechanics of how you're using it. Yeah, send me an email. I'd be glad to take a look at that one closer because you've kind of got me on that one. Not 100% sure. What's next?
Let's see. Michael Scott asked, would you recommend a hands-on teaching / sharpening class? I have only been watching YouTube videos and have gotten better, but I am worried that I'm using bad techniques or habits and repeating them.
The one big thing about having an in-person, hands-on sharpening class is you actually get to know what is sharp. Getting to know with your finger what sharp is very important. Because until you can know what truly sharp is, you think you have truly sharp. But it can usually get a bit sharper. And for some things, you don't have to get it sharper. But if you're talking paring chisels and carving tools, you need that really, really sharp, keen edge. And the only way you know that you've actually achieved it is if you know what it is. And you can't get that through a video. And so being able to have that is great. As to bad technique, there is no bad technique. As long as you're doing it safely and you're getting it sharp and you're not destroying the tool, it's fine. So there are hundreds and hundreds of techniques, and every one of them is okay, every one of them is good, and every one of them has someone who it works really well for. So yeah, don't worry about right or wrong, as long as you know what truly sharp is. And don't assume you know what truly sharp is unless you've actually felt something that is, you know what truly sharp is. And your kitchen knives, they're not truly sharp. Razor blades, that brand new razor blades that you'll get from the store, that's sharp. And yeah, you can get that on a slick or a chisel or a plane iron. And so that's usually what you're feeling for. But getting it in person is a great way to learn. It is phenomenal and it's well worth the money. It's a really, really good way to go. So it depends on you and your budget, and if you can afford it, then great, it's well worth it. If not, then yeah. A lot of people have learned by themselves. What's next?
Okay. I don't think I'm going to get to any new questions from here on out. I'm not even sure we're going to finish. So I'm going to do...
Unless you throw a super chat.
From people we haven't heard from yet. Pit Snipe asked, when it comes to woodworking with pine, what recommendations do you have besides not using it?
Pine is not an easy wood. Pine is a difficult wood. Yes, it cuts easy, it cuts fast, but it also crushes and dents, and it is a pain to work with. And there's no benefit to its appearance. It is an annoying wood in every way. However, if you do want to work with it, sharpness is very important. If your tools aren't sharp, they just crush. And crushing it is not a good thing when it comes to wood. You need to have something that will actually sever and cut the fibers rather than something that pushes in a ways and then kind of cuts through. You need to have it really, 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 really sharp. Especially like if you're practicing dovetails and things like that, your chisels have to be way sharper to get good clean lines in pine than they do have to be in oak. I can let my chisels get really dull in oak and still cut really nicely. But in pine, the moment they start to get dull, you've got to sharpen them, otherwise you're just going to be crushing the wood. It's fast, it's efficient, but it is difficult. Yeah, so sharpness is key, as it is with everything else, but very important with pine. What's next?
I knew you were going to ask me and I knew the yawn was coming. So sorry.
I saw it coming and I had to.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Ed Kowalczyk asked, had an ice storm and salvaged some maple. I cut it to 24 inches and split it for turning on the lathe. What can I do to promote spalting during drying?
Put it in the dirt. Yeah, you will. Spalting is actually fungus that grows in from the end, and it grows along the basically the tubes, the veins in the wood. And so what you can do is stand it up in the dirt, and that will propagate up through it. Give it a couple months outside standing up like that, and you'll get spalting. Yeah, that's basically the best thing. Is if you have it, if you're stickering and stacking and drying it, you're not going to get that. But the dirt, there's lots of fungus in there, and it will grow up there and do all sorts of things. I mean, it means you're going to be losing some of the material on the ends, but that's okay. Just chop it off, get yourself some clean stuff. Or if you get some dirt on the outside, you're going to be turning it down, and it's roughly hewn, so then you don't have much of a problem there. But yeah, it's contact with the dirt that does it. So yeah.
All right. You good?
What's next?
Okay. Cary Wiedman asked, speaking of hard South American woods, I'm making an 8-foot by 3-foot table out of Sucapura?
I don't know that one, but
It's 3 boards already glued up, and now I'm trying to get it flat. I have Stanley number 5 and number 8 planes, but getting tear out. It's kind of strange tear out where, like every other row of grain, seems to pull out deeper than the surface.
yeah.
Well, every other cut's flat. Any suggestions? Is my plane not sharp enough?
Yeah, a lot of the South American woods, the fibers don't all grow vertically together. They actually twist around the tree, and so they actually grow in a spiral pattern up the tree. But what happens is every few years that spiral pattern slowly turns and starts going the other direction. So you get this crisscrossing pattern as it grows up the tree, which makes for a really, really strong and durable tree that can withstand a lot. The downside to it is it means you're never going with the grain. You're always going cross grain no matter what you do. And that can be a serious pain. So when it comes to that, what you have to do is either, number one, use a card scraper or a cabinet scraper and get yourself with that. Number two, you could sand it, and any monkey can do that. Or number three, you can do what I would generally do, and that's take your number 4 or number 5 and set it up like a smoothing plane. Close up that mouth, get your chip breaker right up by the edge, and the most important thing is incredibly, incredibly sharp. You've got to have that blade beautifully keen and with a really, really light cut. You do those three things, and you can go crazy and cut in the worst woods. And when I mean a light cut, I'm talking like 1/2 thousandths, just barely taking anything off the surface. And that will go down through it and leave you, it still leaves tear out, but the tear out is so microscopically small that you can't feel or see it, and it's the size of the pores in the wood. So it is what you're looking for. So if you want to know how to do that, I have several videos. Look for how to set up a smoothing plane, and I'll talk you through the actual setup on it. Now you don't have to have all of those in place. A lot of people like to have the chip breaker close, but keep the mouth a little bit bigger so that things come through it easier. Some people like to close up the mouth, move the chip breaker back. Some people like to create the angle a little higher. But the most important thing is incredibly sharp and light pass. You do those and you'll be good. Add in the other things and you're even better. So, yeah, not an easy wood to work with. Is that another super chat?
Yes.
Dead Gamet.
I miss the flashing lights and need another mom joke to finish up the evening. Thank you, James and Sarah. Always enjoy Tuesday evenings. Cheers.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I need to hook that back up. Sorry. Do you have one ready?
Did you hear about a priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a blood bank?
No, I haven't heard that one.
The rabbit says, I think I might be a typo.
Typo. Yes, I like that one. That one's good. Well done.
I can't take the credit. I
Thank
just
you,
read
Dad
it.
Gamet.
My brain's done.
What's
by
next?
then. Let's see. I'm gonna see if we can run through these last four real quick. Did James work with lignum vitae much, or was it just for his chisel test?
I have put it in a few projects. It is an annoying word to work with, but perfectly fine. I actually prefer doing that than a lot of the... I would rather work with that than Purple Heart. It is a very hard wood, but it's a very clean cutting wood. Beautiful curls coming off it. You can plane that thing crazy smooth. Really works down nicely. It's hard. It's going to dull the tools quickly, but it's a lot of fun to work with. So, yeah. Haven't had a lot of experience with it because it's expensive to play with, but maybe someday I'll make like a dining room table out of it or something like that.
Another dining room table?
What's that?
Another dining room table?
Well, when we build the second dining room.
Sure.
What's next?
Ken wants to know, any news on the marking knife project, replicating your favorite one?
It is still in the works. It's probably going to be for another 6 months, a year or so. I'm working with DFM Toolworks to come up with it, and so he is coming out with a tool. Even something simple like that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of experimenting and finding it right and getting the hardening right, and how do you actually machine it, and there are lots of things that go into it. And so, yeah, it will come at some point. I just no idea when. So stay tuned. Is that another one? Idle Hands Workshop.
Yeah. Love y'all.
Well, thanks, man.
They're making
We
me
love you
work
too.
way too much at the end of the night. Are you ready?
The hot cocoa fund is filling up. What's next?
Did I tell you about the time the cop pulled me over?
Which time?
Technically, it's only ever been once. But anyways, he said papers. I yelled scissors and ran off. If you want to talk about who's been pulled over more, sir, I will have that conversation.
I've only been pulled over once. I've been in several accidents, but I've only been pulled
No.
Oh, I've been pulled over twice. Twice, yeah. Loud muffler. That one, I don't know how we got away with that for so long. No muffler. Back when we had no money at all.
I think there were a few other. But anyways, we digress. If James were to make a board about 4 inches by 24 inches with a final thickness of 1/8 inch, how thick would he resaw?
4 inches by 24 inches?
Yeah.
By 1/8 inch?
Yes.
Well, it depends on your skill with the saw. For me, I would mark a line on the board at 1/8 inch, and I would be off of that by 1/100 of an inch or so with the edge of the blade. Because it would probably only take a few passes to clean it up. So if I'm doing a board that big as 1/8 inch, it's probably going to be veneered to something. And so I will leave the rough side up, glue it down, and then plane it off once it's glued down. But yeah, I mean, I can get relatively close. Usually my saw kerf only wastes about a little over 1/16 of an inch in total. But yeah, it depends on your skill. If your skill is off, you might want to move off that line a little bit more. When I was first starting, I was staying a good 1/8 inch away from the line and then planing back to it. But the closer you can get to it, the less wood you waste and the less time you have to spend in it. So it all comes down to what skill you have. What's next?
Okay, last question I'm pulling up.
Cool.
Michael Norris asks, what finish should I use on curly maple?
It depends on what it's being used on. Finish does not matter with the wood. You can use any finish on any wood and it will look great in different circumstances. It has more to do with how is it going to be used. If it's going to be a furniture, you need something that's durable. If it's going to be something that's in your hand, you want something that is oil resistant but feels good. There are all sorts of different applications. So right now my go-to furniture is Rubio Monocoat. Really like that stuff. Now, the one thing you have to be careful with maple is blotchiness. But if you're working with bird's eye maple or figured maple or curly maple, you want to bring out that blotchiness because that brings out the different colors in there. And so to stop blotchiness, you have to use a pre-stain to go on there first. But if you want that blotchiness, you want to see that color structure that comes out in there, what you want to do is plane it and then hit it with like some 400 grit sandpaper just to fill all the pores with dust. And the pores will then soak the finish in a little bit deeper in those places. So the places where it soaks in a little bit deeper, it'll get a little bit darker. And that will give you the contrast, particularly in like bird's eye and curly maple, or you want to see that chatoyancy. You'll get that from deeper finish penetration. And it's a little counterintuitive. If you just plane it, your finish won't penetrate quite as well as when you fill the pores with a little bit of dust. That will actually wick it down in a little farther. But yeah, finish depends on its application and your desired look as opposed to the wood. You don't generally choose a finish for the wood. So, yeah. Boiled linseed oil and paste wax. It's the answer to all things. On that note, I think we're going to wrap it up here. So I think that'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.